Some experiences feel accidental. A sound, a shadow, a moment you explain away. But tonight's stories, they're a little bit different. These are moments where something paused, adjusted, and responded. Not because it was startled, but because it realized it wasn't alone anymore. To all the spirits watching tonight, welcome. I'm your host, Timothy Rose. This is #Paranormal. There's a line that most paranormal experiences never cross. That line is awareness. A noise can be dismissed, a shadow can be ignored, but when something responds after you speak, after you move, after you acknowledge it, that changes the experience. Tonight's stories aren't about panic. They're about realization. The quiet understanding that something noticed it was being noticed. Let's begin.
Hi, Tim. My name's Jessica. I'm calling from Missoula. I live just outside of town. It's very quiet at night. A few months ago, I started hearing footsteps on my porch after midnight. They weren't fast. They weren't random. It sounded like pacing, back and forth. At first, I told myself it had to be an animal, but animals don't walk like that. This went on for weeks. Same time, same sound. One night, I finally yelled through the door, "I know you're there." The footsteps stopped immediately. There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe it had left. Then something tapped on the glass, once, slow. What scared me wasn't the tap, it was the timing. It felt like whatever was out there stopped and decided, I don't yell anymore.
What stands out here to me isn't the footsteps, it's the pause. That moment where sound didn't rush away, didn't continue, but it stopped. Pauses imply decision making. Decision making implies awareness. In investigations, when activity changes immediately after communication, we call that an intelligent response. It doesn't automatically mean something malicious, but it does mean engagement matters. And Jessica did the most important thing possible here. She stopped engaging. Sometimes silence is the boundary. Awareness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits.
Hey, Tim. This is Andrew from Toledo. I work nights, so I usually leave a radio on for background noise. One night, the signal dropped into static. Right before I changed the station, I heard my name. It didn't sound distorted. It didn't sound rushed. It just said, Andrew. I shut the radio off immediately. The next night, I turned it back on. The static came back on its own. This time, the voice said, "You heard me." After that, I didn't move. I just sat there in silence, listening, waiting to see if it would say anything else. It didn't. I don't listen to the radio anymore.
To me, what's unsettling here isn't the voice, it's the restraint. If this were random interference, it wouldn't stop cleanly, but it did. One acknowledgement, and then silences. In many cases, that's all it takes. Not because the presence is gone, but because the interaction is complete. And that's a distinction most people don't consider. Not every encounter escalates. Sometimes it just simply observes.
Hi, Tim. My name's Lucas. I'm calling from Bend. I have a security camera in my living room. It's fixed. It doesn't pan or tilt. One morning, I checked the footage and noticed the camera angle had changed. Not a glitch, not distortion. It had physically moved. There was no one in the room. When I watched the clip again, I noticed something else. The movement happened right after I sat up in bed. What I can't stop thinking about is this. The camera didn't keep moving. It adjusted once and then stopped, like it got the angle it wanted.
The detail that matters most here is control. The camera, it didn't drift. It didn't overshoot. It adjusted once, and then it stopped. It suggests intention, not malfunction. In cases involving technology, investigators look closely at timing. And here, the timing, well, it's precise. The moment Lucas became aware, something else did too. Sometimes awareness isn't loud. Sometimes, well, it's exact.
Hi, Tim. This is Natalie from Roanoke. I used to hear footsteps on my stairs every night. Slow, steady. One night, I opened my bedroom door and stood at the top of the stairs. The sound stopped immediately, not because it left, but because I was watching. Standing there, I had the strongest feeling that if I went back into my room, the footsteps would start again, like it was waiting for me to stop paying attention.
This is a pattern that comes up more than people often realize. Activity that stops when it's observed, not because it's afraid, but because attention itself changes the environment. Natalie described something important here. The feeling that if she stopped paying attention, the activity would resume. That sense of being watched back, can linger long after the experience ends. Awareness doesn't always move towards us. Sometimes it waits for us to look away.
Hey Tim, my name's Mark. I'm calling from Owensboro. Every time I moved from one room to another, the sounds followed me, not louder, not faster, just closer, like it was adjusting its distance. After a while, I stopped moving around the house as much, not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to find out how close it was willing to get. Whatever it was, it always knew where I was.
This is where experiences stop being momentary. When your behavior changes, not because something told you to, but because you're adapting. Mark didn't freeze. He didn't panic. He adjusted. And that quiet shift is often the most telling part of an encounter. When something knows where you are, and you start moving differently because of it, when it becomes personal. Tonight's stories weren't about sudden fear. They were more about subtle realization. Moments where something didn't rush, didn't escalate, didn't retreat. It waited. Awareness doesn't always come with intent, but intent isn't required for something to leave a mark. If you're experiencing something familiar, remember this. You're not powerless. You're not obligated to engage, and silence can be a boundary. Sometimes the safest response is no response at all. If you're dealing with something ongoing, something that feels aware, adaptive, or intrusive, my investigation team is here to help. We approach every case carefully, respectfully, without provocation or judgment. If you need help or simply need someone to take you seriously, reach out. Thank you for spending your time with me tonight. To all the spirits watching, thank you for trusting this space with your stories. Till next time, stay aware, stay grounded, stay curious.